Assalamu guys, Irfan back again with another video, and this is a follow-up video on the dependent drop-down list that we had done earlier. Also, we had used one method of doing that. In the earlier video, what we had was, let me just do it right here. You had countries of the world, which you had USA, Canada, European countries, the rest of the world. Okay, and then you would have columns for USA, Canada, all right. And just gonna, okay, so for USA you could have, say, New York and Austin, Dallas, Los Angeles. For Canada you could have Toronto, you could have Regina, Saskatoon, Calgary. For European countries you could have London, Paris, Milan, etc. And for the rest of the world you have Karachi, Colombo, etc. So if you were to select USA as a country, then the city column should only allow you this 4 choices. It should not allow you to pick Toronto or London or Karachi or Colombo or Paris, Milan, or whatever. Okay, and that was the idea behind dependent drop-down list. So this is fine and dandy if you've got this is what we would call categories. If you have limited categories, you get, because for each category you have to create a column. So you have category 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have to create 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. Okay. So for limited categories, yeah, that might work. But in this case, the example that we are using, you've got lots and lots of names, and we've got about 36 names, 36 entries, last name and first name. So when you have the last name, only those first name which has the same last name should be, should be an option in the drop down. This could be, a list of thousands of names. So obviously this method would not be feasible. It would not, Excel would not even allow you to have those many columns. Okay, so we have come up with a different method. So let's see how we're going to go ahead and do that. So I've got 2 sheets here, data entry regular and data entry smart. So let's first do the data entry regular. So I'm going to do a quick drop down. So I've highlighted the cells where I want the drop down to show up. Go to data, go to data validation, settings, allow instead of any value is list, and the source, if I were to select this guy here, let me show you what happens here. There's a problem. The problem is Brown is showing up 4 times because here the last name Brown does show up 4 times. For Brown Alexander, Brown Andrew, Brown Christian, and Brown Ryan. Similarly for Davis, Johnson, all these names are showing up 4 times. So you can't have this choice showing up 4 times here also. So what you're going to do is we're going to do a trick. We're going to use a pivot table to get rid of the duplicates. Okay. And click on insert pivot table and last name, and as a habit what I do is always get rid of these colors, and I don't like just like to have plain vanilla plain pivot tables, and I may want it in tabular format, but I do need to get rid of the grand totals for the rows and columns and in subtotals. Okay, I don't want that. Now this blank, the word blank spelled out, is because they are blank cells. So when you do a pivot, they show up as blank with blank spelled out. So that again we need to get rid of. So click on it, press space once and hit enter, and then what we're going to do is we're going to sort them alphabetically by putting this down and sort A to Z. Okay. So now we've got the last names sorted and unique names only. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and redo the data validation, and this time what we're going to do is the data is coming from here. Okay, so now you see brown is only showing up once, everything is showing up once, it's all nice and dandy. But now the problem that we run into is, if we were to add a name, say for example, if I were to add my last name and my first name and another name, let's do test last name, test first name. Okay, go here, I remember to refresh the table, pivot table, see if I've got the last name and coming here and my last name coming up here. Now if you go into the data entry where you have the drop down, it missed some of the names at the bottom. See what happened? These two names got missed. Because why? Go here. Well, let's leave the whole data validation, and this stops here. So what you do is you make sure you go as far as you think would be reasonably be long enough list. Hit OK, and now all the names would show up. Okay, but the question is, what do you do with the first name? Now, in case of Afzal, if I were just to do a regular drop down, all choices are coming here. What I need to do is somehow restrict the choices in the first name for last names with the first name that has the same last name as in this cell here. Okay, so that is essentially what we did over here, achieving the same thing but in a different way. So I'm going to go ahead and do this in this sheet here that I call data entry smart. For the first column here, I'm just going to do what I did for the in this sheet here, the regular one. Pick the names of the, I'm going to increase that to 365,535. All right, so that shows up here. All right, now for the first name, you're going to do a trick. First of all, I'm going to insert a pivot for the first name. Okay, highlight the first name column, insert pivot table, and this time I'm going to insert a pivot into existing sheet, and that is this sheet here. Okay, and I've selected first name, and as a matter of habit, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the colors and make this report into a tabular format. And what is required is getting rid of any grand totals or any subtotals. Okay, now at the bottom again you have blank spelled out. Click on it, single space, hit enter, and we are going to also sort this alphabetically. Okay, now what we did was, now we have a pivot table that has all the last names and a pivot table that has all the first names. Now what we need to do is somehow filter this table, create a filter for this pivot table for first, so that it only shows the first name, those first names for which the last name is selected, is entered in this first cell here. Okay, so for example, if we were to select Brown, then this pivot table should only show Alexander, Andrew, Christian, Ryan. The rest of the name should not even show up. So we're going to do a trick here. I'm just going to go ahead and save, and we're going to be using Visual Basic. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as a Visual Basic macro enabled workbook. Click on save. Okay, I'm going to close this, and I'm going to reopen this new sheet just to make sure that that gets applied. Okay, Now what we're going to do is, I'm going to move as far right as I think is reasonable. So let's go to BZ. That's far enough. And I'm just going to color this. Okay. So this is your target cell. I'll explain in just a minute what target is. And what I'll also do is I'll freeze this here. Okay, this was okay. Now what I want is this cell to show me what is the active cell. By active cell is the cell in which the cursor is. You know, the cell, if you start typing, which cell would that data go into? So in this case, the active cell is column BR, row 5. In this case, B2, active cell shows up here. Column B, row 2. If you were to do it here, column B, row 10. So I want this to get updated automatically every time I move the cursor around. I want this to show what the active cell is. Okay. So let's go into developer. If you don't have developer, just go to options and customize ribbon and just check this developer. Okay. So Visual Basic, double click and worksheet, and we'll leave this as it is, selection change. So whenever there's a change in this worksheet, data into smart, that's when this macro needs to run. And we'll type range and within bracket BZ1. That's the cell in which the value is going to go. Value is equal to active cell address. Okay. So in this BZ1, this macro is going to put in the active cell address. And to make sure that it gets updated, we'll just put this workbook dot refresh all. Okay, and close. I'm just going to go ahead and save this. Now see, whenever I move this cursor around, this cell updates. Right now it's saying the active cell, column B, BO5, BO5. So whenever I move this, this guy gets updated. So if I'm here, it says A2, this is B2, this is B10, A10, A14. Okay, so this is how we are going to pick up whatever, you know. The idea is this pivot here, you're going to introduce a filter in this, and the filter is going to be the last name that's entered here, or if you're in this row, or this here if you're in the third row, or the last name entered in the fourth row, depending on which line you're doing your data entry. So we need to figure out what is in this value, what's this value, and then apply this as a filter to this pivot table. Okay. So let's start. Now we know what the active cell is. What I need to do is, we need to figure out what is the row number. Row number is the number here. So if it says A4, means column A and row 4. If I go here, A10, column A, row 10. Here, B7, column B, row 7. So what we need to do is just get the 7 out of here. Now, it could be 7, it could be 77, it could be a single digit, it could be 2 digits, who knows. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to extract the number from here. So what we're going to do is equal to, right? First what we're going to do is we get rid of the first dollar sign. So, right, so taking this, and whatever the length is, -1 is what we're going to keep. We're going to start counting from the right hand side, count leftwards, and we're gonna stop one less than the length. So one less than the length would have us stopping at C and not at the dollar sign. Okay. See how the first dollar sign got removed. So when I move around, it doesn't matter whether it's single letters or double letters. It adjusts automatically. Now what we need to do is get rid of anything before this dollar sign, including the dollar sign. So since it's in the middle, we need to find out what's the location, because it could be after, it could be the third character or it could be the second character. So we need to find out where the dollar sign is. And the way we do that is use the search. And what are we trying to find? Trying to find the dollar. Where are we trying to find the dollar? In this guy here. Okay, so in this case it's saying the dollar is the third character. So C is the first, B is the second, dollar is the third. It's the third character. Okay. Now if I were here, it would be A2, A $2. So A would be first character, dollar would be the second character. See? Now what I want to do is get rid of everything from here. I want to get rid of everything before the dollar sign, including the dollar sign. The way I do that is, again, I'm going to use the right function, right, CA, and I'm going to use the length of this guy here minus the number of characters where the dollar sign is. Okay. So now this is saying this is row number 2, this is row number 5, you're now on row number 10, you're now on row number 20. Now we need to figure out, whichever row I am, what is the last name in that row. Okay, the way I do that is I know what the row is. I know the column for the last name is A. So it could be A1 or it could be A2. It can't be A1 because that's the heading. It could be A2 or A3 or A4. Like in this case, it would be A5. Here would be A8. So what I need to do is just take this 8, add an A in front of it, and then go to that cell, whatever that cell is, like A8, A5, A3. The way I would do that is equal to indirect. Okay. A. So I'm taking the A, adding 1 to it, so it's A1, and then the indirect makes it so it reads it makes this whole thing become a cell address, and then indirect grabs whatever the contents of that cell is, which has the cell address. Okay, so I'm in row number 2, so the last name that's selected is Brown. Here row number 3 is blank, so this should turn 0. But if I were to put in a name, say for example Davis, it should say Davis. So now I know what the last name is on the current row. Let's enter a few more. Johnson. Let's grab my name. So whichever row you are in, so even if I'm the first name column, it knows what is the last name that's written in front of it. So if you move down, this keeps getting updated. Just keep an eye here and then move the cursor down. See? It knows what its last name is. Now we're going to use this as a filter for this guy here. Okay? The way you do that is I'm going to introduce a helper column here. Selected last name. Okay? Just going to just copy the format so I don't do it again. Now if this is not equal to is not equal to whatever is in this cell here, hit F4 to put dollar signs, so it locks that position. It's not, it's a bad selection. But if the A2 is equal to that, then it's bingo. And I'm going to drag this format down by double clicking, and you see how, because here it says Afzal, for the last name Afzal, it says bingo. Now I'm going to use this column as a filter for this pivot table. Okay. So the first thing that I need to do is go to Analyze, go to Data. Now I'm only using column B. I need to also, I also need to include column C. Okay, because that's where my filter is going to be. And I'm going to grab this field in the filter portion of the pivot table, and I'll get rid of the bad selection, get rid of the blank, and only leave bingo. Now this will form as my options available for me as for my first name. Highlight this, data validation list, and the source is going to be, and I'm going to increase that to 635 535 or 655 35, and now you see Brown. If we go here, Brown has Alexander, Andrew, Christian, and Ryan. So those are the only names that should show up: Alexander, Andrew, Christian, and Ryan. Okay. Davis, Daniel, Kevin, Stephen, Zachary. Daniel, Kevin, Stephen, Zachary. Afzal, one choice only, Irfan. So that's how you're able to do a dependent drop-down list without having to resort to creating columns like this. Because obviously what's going to happen is, like I said, in this case, we have, how many first names do we have? How many last names do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So right now you only have 11. You could go to 11,000. So you can't be creating 11,000 because columns, because Excel obviously would not allow that. But even if it did, it's going to be very, very cumbersome. In this way, you don't have to do any of this fancy stuff. You just need to have one helper column and just use Visual Basic to tell you what is your active cell. You strip it for its dollar sign in the front. You strip it for, you find out where the dollar sign is, the second dollar sign, the middle dollar sign is, and then you strip everything, all the letters and the dollar sign, and just leave the row number behind, and then use the enter command to get the last name selected on that row, and then you use that name as a filter for this pivot table. Now, the interesting thing is, if you remember, let me go back to developer, Visual Basic. See this part here? That does double duty. It not only makes sure this gets updated, but also make sure that because of this getting updated, these guys get updated, and most importantly, CD1, which is used as it goes here and gets smashed here, and when this changes, this pivot table needs to update. So that workbook refresh does everything for you. It make sure this gets updated, and also make sure these pivot tables gets updated. So that's how you would do a dependent list using pivot tables and macros in the Visual Basic, and without resorting to list like this. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please kindly subscribe. Thank you.